And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Lakers insider for LakersDaily.com, joined today by Raj Chapalu, your favorite Twitter person. I think we can say this. He's one of Twitter's most popular people. And the times that people do get angry at him, it's usually for something super trivial, like
Right.
hilariously trivial. How you holding up, Raj?
I'm doing well. It's been fun. I'm glad we got another game. A lot of people were, kind of rooting for Dallas to
Yeah.
close this out. I am so excited, Anthony, that we get another game on Thursday. I was wondering what I'm gonna do with my life for the next 11 days or whatever it would have been until game one of the finals. But no, I'm excited. We get more playoff basketball, and I think Mini can actually do something interesting. So, but yeah, I'm excited. We get more hoops on the way.
It's crazy to me that the conference finals are every other day. That they're just every
Yeah,
other day. And like there's no hurry. Like obviously there isn't a hurry because the finals are at a much more leisurely pace. It's crazy to me that it's like we're going to sprint, we're going to sprint, we're going to sprint. And I understand it in the first round that the schedule kind of demands that you take some breaks in there in between games because there's so many of them, but I don't know. Like if I'm the NBA, this is
yeah.
when you have the most eyeballs. I would stretch this as long as I possibly can. Like I wait a week between games, make sure everybody stays healthy. Like the whole like
Ye-
for college football, I know that you weren't gonna you don't pay attention to college football, but college
No.
football, there's like a solid month in between like where the playoff teams that are playing in the final four teams, there's like a solid month in between the end of the season and that first playoff game. Like they understand you're going to stretch this out.
eh,
The NFL, you have a bye week before the Super Bowl, for the
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
for the Pro Bowl and all that. It really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Can I ask a college basketball question? Because this is always so fascinating to me. There's only 24 hours in a day. And I understand like watching your own team, but there are people who still watch every college football game. I find that insane. Like they have time to go and watch every single college football game and then follow the NFL and then go to baseball and then somehow also follow the NBA. I'm just wondering like how does that like so college football, when do they play, I guess? Like what's the months
All right,
that
so one, there's a lot more hours in the day when you aren't rewatching 82 games, you know.
Okay,
So
that's fair.
there's that. Most people, honestly, most people don't watch 82 games. So even there, like you and I are kind of different in that like we watch all 82 games, all the
Right.
preseason games, all of that stuff. Um so that right there opens up a bunch of hours. Um in football
Yeah.
season, you have well, so you'll usually have like one game Thursday night. It's a pro game.
Okay.
You'll have one college game sometimes on Friday nights. Then college football takes place on Saturday all day. And then Sunday all day is pro football. And then Monday you have a at least one game, sometimes a couple. Um but the thing is there like I don't watch college football the way that I watch like pro football. Pro football,
Okay.
I'll order red zone, and I'll order like actually like yeah, I guess I'm letting out a secret here, but like this year I'm actually going to try to get a return on the amount of time that I spend paying attention to football. And I think I'm going to relaunch the Anthony Irwin podcast to be able to talk about football with my friends who cover that sport and talk about baseball with my friends who cover that sport. Um,
I
but
probably
but
won't
like
be on those ones.
no,
Um
actually, I'm gonna bring you on, and like I'm just gonna explain. Like you're gonna like one segment every episode is gonna be Raj asking what's the NBA comp here.
Right.
Um,
Yes, yes.
but yeah, so I'm thinking about doing that. But like with college football, usually you just watch your team's game, and if there's a really really big game, maybe you tune in for that.
Right.
Pro football, you have red zone on all day, and you kind of come and go, and you see how your fantasy players are doing during the middle of the day. Baseball, like it's really, really rare that you have people watching all 162 games. I feel like you have hardcore fans. Don't get me wrong, there are hardcore fans and there are people who cover the sport, but baseball to me is the perfect that
You
and
go to the
golf,
game.
like the perfect like background noise sport. We're like,
Mm,
where I'm working, I love day games. I'll sit here and I'll be working, I'll be editing and doing back end stuff, and I'll have the Dodgers on in the background. Or
mm,
if I once I finish, the Dodgers played their 2 games today. They had a rare doubleheader. Um, if the Dodgers are playing, when I am recording, usually I'll have the game on in the background, and then I'll have the game on while I edit and post the show after the show is done.
yeah.
Um, and again, like it makes me rare that I watch that much baseball, given that I don't cover it yet. But like I it is it's look, sports are just a commitment. Like being a sports fan takes up a lot of time. It's actually a really
Right.
dumb commitment too, because your odds of watching a champion every year are really, really bad.
Right, for sure. Baseball is one that I've enjoyed going to a baseball game. I cannot sit there and watch pitch after pitch and it like stop after every single possession. I don't know if they call it a possession, but like after every single bat or whatever it is,
Pitch.
and they kind of reset. It feels like, you know what it feels like, Anthony? It feels like this is gonna be terrible to people who actually watch baseball, but it feels like a one-on-one between the pitcher and the batter, kind of to me. Like it's like a one-on-one game, and then the other guys are kind of just supplement to that. But no, I always thought the college football thing was interesting because I see people who follow every score, and I see the little ticker on ESPN, and there's like 100
And it
scores
never
there,
ends.
and it never ends, and people are
Mhm.
like living off each one. I just find it very fascinating how we spend our time.
Well, that there's a lot of money to be made in college football because your typical bookies aren't keeping up to date with all of the college football that's being played. So you'll find a lot of I'm not that kind of a gambler or whatever, but a lot of people will
Right.
say that they make a lot of money off of college football, and especially the lower level college football, because there you can know more about that than the house. And we'll see. But anyway, tonight on the show, we're going to be talking about the stuff that I talked about in yesterday's episode about JJ Redick and the report that I dropped there. We're going to be talking about the reported assistant coaches that Mark Stein threw out there, that JJ Redick, and it would seem the Lakers are also considering there. We'll talk about that game that we just watched between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Dallas Mavericks. And I'm with you. I'm glad that the Wolves won, because 11 days of NBA Twitter just yelling at each other is just
Right.
not healthy. Like it's not good for anybody. And then also there was an interesting report via Shams about Bronny James and his
Yep.
choices with uh, who he's going to work out for.
Workouts.
Apparently, he's whittled it down to just the Lakers and the Phoenix Suns. And I guess the Suns are getting ready to take him at 22, potentially trying to align themselves to be able to get LeBron there. So we'll talk about that entire situation there too. So a ton to get to. We'll start though with JJ Redick. And again, apologies for my voice, everybody. My children are just about done with school for the year. So hopefully my voice, this will be the last time that you hear me sound like this for the rest of the year, until I start traveling. But um, yeah, the JJ Redick thing, just a quick rehash of what I said yesterday and some of what is being said today. I said yesterday that I had somebody tell me that they thought that there is an agreement already in place between the Lakers and JJ Redick, and that the two sides are just waiting for the right time to announce it. JJ Redick is already, again, according to Mark Stein, working on his potential coaching staff. That is, I would imagine, I think a big sign to where this appears to be heading to. Um, I also seem to think that this is, I made sure to headline all of the videos today by saying this feels evident or imminent.
Yeah,
That I feel like this is a decision that is coming soon. I feel like this is a decision that could have already been made. One report that made me laugh out loud the more that I thought about it, and I said it in yesterday's show, was the Lakers thinking that JJ Redick could be the next Pat Riley. Um, Once you leak that, you kind of have to hire the guy. I feel like when once you're like, all right, we think he could be Pat Riley, and then you decide not to. I feel like kind of shitting on Pat Riley a little bit there. The process here is super weird, but then as the day went on, Dave McMenamin apparently, and I didn't see him say this or write this or tweet this, but apparently he is saying that until Ty Lue signs his extension with the Clippers, that he isn't all the way out of the picture with the Lakers.
yeah,
Let's start there. I find that tricky because, and it's not to say that I'm disputing Dave's reporting. It's not to say that I don't believe him here, but
sure,
practically speaking, it just doesn't make very much sense because Lou is under contract with the Clippers next year. Like, even if he doesn't sign his extension, he could still be a lame duck head coach next year where it opens him up to getting fired midseason. That's why head coaches don't like operating under that circumstance. Or he could earn himself a much bigger contract than the Clippers are willing to offer him right now. And that would be the gamble that he'd be making there. The reason I bring that up is the Clippers, who I don't think want to see Ty Lue helping the Lakers take that next step while
sure.
the Clippers go to Inglewood. I don't see the Clippers letting Lue out of his contract, and the people that I've spoken to from the Lakers or close to the Lakers also feel that way, that they just don't see a world in which the Clippers let Lue out of his contract to be able to go to the Lakers. And
It-
so in that circumstance, Lou would have to resign his position and give back whatever money. And then
sure.
even there, you might have an NDA to potentially deal with that might not also allow him to go and coach the Lakers. It's a very tricky and complicated situation. That's why a week or so ago, when I wrote for Lakers Daily about this whole deal, I wrote and I report and I stand by it that the Lakers are essentially operating as if Lou isn't going to be available. But what do you make of all of this stuff?
Yeah, yeah, and I think in Dave's reporting, he also mentioned that the Lakers would possibly wait for the finals to conclude because JJ will also be commentating during the NBA finals, and that's I guess an important gig for him. When I think of the Ty Lue stuff, Anthony, coaches of his stature and of his pedigree, they never coached that final season, at least from what I
No.
remember. Usually an extension is done, or they are fired, or there is where they kind of separate. They agree to kind of separate
Mutual
on good
agreement
term,
to part
a
ways.
mutual agreement. Yes, to part ways. I could see why the Lakers would wait. This reporting sounds a little bit more to me like putting pressure on the Clippers to extend Ty Lue. But like another part of this to me is the Clippers have bigger fish to fry. Like they're max player free agent may just walk. And to me, that's a much bigger fire for them to try to put out than this Ty Lue situation or Ty Lue possibly going to the Lakers. Would Steve Ballmer like that? Possibly not. Probably not. But I don't think like that's at the front of their issues. Their issue is what are we doing with Paul George? Paul George is actively going out and seeking max offers, and they've been very consistent with they don't want to give Paul George a max, which rightfully so. I think Paul George kind of showed why in the playoffs you don't pay him the full max, but the Clippers are kind of in a tough situation where it's hard to replace that guy. You let that
Mm-hmm.
guy walk, you don't really get cap space from that. But I think that's a bigger issue for them. And I'm sure Ty Lue is also looking at it like, what is my team next year? Is it Kawhi, James Harden, Russ? Like, what am I going into next year? And I'm not going into that situation without an extension. And I think it's fair. And if you're reporting, and others as well have said that the Lakers believe the Ty Lue situation is dead, and I'm kind of in that belief as well. I just think like it behooves them to at least see how it plays out. Is there a reason to rush this? It is strange that I don't remember, Anthony, in history a coach having assistants leak before they're hired. I don't I do I
So
cannot
apparently that
remember
happened
that
with Brian Shaw. Somebody in my mention said that that had
in
happened with
Denver.
Brian Shaw. I went back to I think with Cleveland. I went back and I tried to
Mhm.
find it. Um, that apparently he had leaked the candidates that he was thinking about before he got the job, and then he never wound up getting the job.
Okay.
I do know that he never coached in Cleveland, but I wasn't able to find that extra detail there that would have made it all the funnier.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, the ESPN thing is a complication thing here. They are a league partner. We know that the Lakers, right, are willing to work with the league on these things. They don't want to take up airspace heading into the finals. Uh,
Mhm.
that could be playing a role here. And again, that's where like the point that you just made it, I think is an important one though. What's the point in the hurry? Why? Like the Lakers know that they could hire JJ Redick. They may already have.
Right.
Like according to the person that I spoke to, who I've gotten stuff from before, they think that this is already done, right? And there
Signed,
are
sealed, and
other
delivered.
factors here that would indicate to me that this feels like it's done. uh the thing there with ESPN, right, and being a partner with the league and all of those things, uh the Lakers can use that as an excuse to continue to see what's going on over there with Lou, because look, I am probably like a little higher, not crazy higher, but a little higher on Reddick than most people I have seen on Twitter.
Yep.
uh I think that he could possibly be good at this eventually, though the timelines don't really make a ton of sense here. That said, if Lou is available, he is far and away the best coach that the Lakers could possibly hire. He would immediately become the most exciting hire the Lakers have made since Phil Jackson. Um,
Right.
like end discussion. You could say whatever you want to say about Luke Walton, but he was a rookie head coach. You could say whatever you want about Mike D'Antoni, but when they hired Mike D'Antoni, they probably should have hired Phil again. um, and then the other coaches since then have not been as inspiring, right? And from that perspective and in that regard, it does make some sense for the Lakers to kind of like sit this out, and they can play good partner with the league. They can play good partner with ESPN. They can, appear to be, towing the company line there while they are also doing the practical thing here. Um,
Right.
that said, you are kind of running out of time, right? Because you're heading into draft scouting. You're
Mhm.
gonna have to make some big personnel decisions going into this upcoming offseason. You would like to have some of those conversations before the end of the finals, right? That's the end of the
Yeah.
finals to the
The
beginning
draft.
of the
Mhm.
next like NBA calendar year is not much time. It's not like the
No.
NFL where the league ends, and then in the NFL you have like forever between the end of the league and like the next start of player movement and personnel movement and coach stuff. Coach stuff does happen relatively quickly. You do have Black Monday. But like in the NFL though, like the time between free agency and trades and all that stuff and the draft in the NFL is just insane. Like I just
Right.
started doing some production for an NFL show, and I was working with the host and I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe how long we have to talk about prospect stuff between between free agency and the draft. It's insane. In the
Yeah.
NBA, it's very much like, no, we want to strike while the iron is hot. We want to carry momentum from the finals into the offseason. We want to
Mhm.
carry momentum from free agency into the draft. We want to do all of this in one fell swoop and then have a nice long month in August and September or so where we can all collectively take a deep breath, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless like
Sure.
Kawhi holds the league hostage.
That was a miserable summer, by the way. I'll never forget that summer.
Yeah.
Kawhi signed, and then I had a 3.5 hour, 4 hour drive to Vegas the next day. No, it was absolute hell of a drive. But no, it does feel like Ty Lue or JJ, and that's kind of where I'm kind of sitting, Anthony. You look at the other prospective coaches on the market, and just none of them excite me to that point. And I think JJ is like the perfect mix of kind of, he's a risk, obviously, with a first time head coach. But to me, as again, maybe this doesn't matter. As a guy who's listened to a lot of the Old Man in 3 episodes before JJ kind of blew up in the podcast space, his original pod was the Old Man in 3, and I think even from there, you listen to someone for enough hours. JJ is a rare coach. Anthony, I was thinking about this today. He's a rare coach with like absolute hours and hours of conversations about basketball before he gets the job. Like that's extremely
Mhm.
rare. No one has that level of, it's calling it content, I guess is one piece to put it, but just that much information on how his basketball mind works. It's all kind of out there. And hopefully the Lakers have gone in and sift through and listened to enough and gotten an
Have you
idea.
been rewatching Old Man in the 3 episodes?
I've actually been doing the Mind the Game pod because all those are absolutely a lot more interesting. Like go back to go and listen. I encourage listeners to go and listen to go back and listen to like episode 1, 2, and 3. It's much different when you envision this guy as your head coach. It's a lot different. It's a
I
lot
don't know what
different.
I expected there, Raj. I
Right.
asked the
Okay.
question. I knew
Okay.
what was coming, and it didn't
hmm
matter. You floored me. I'm not going to be able to breathe for the rest of the episode.
So Mind the Game is very easy to digest, right? Because it's not game film, so I don't have to like, I can have it on, like I can re-listen to it without actually being focused kind of what they're looking at. So it's very easy to kind of digest and go back and watch. But no, with JJ, like with the assistants that are coming out, it just feels like it's a matter of time. And to your point, with if they're running out of time, I just hopefully these conversations are being had. I think JJ and LeBron are somewhat going to be on the same wavelength for a lot of things. So hopefully these conversations are happening with LeBron. And I know he wants to kind of separate himself from front office decisions, but just in terms of free agency, in terms of their kind of the route they want to go, in terms of trades and who they're looking at drafting and all that, it just feels like it's going to be JJ Redick. And Anthony, is there anything in the interview process you think could change? Like I'm, the Lakers have kind of also put out their, they're waiting for the, final interviews. I guess to me, like JJ doesn't seem like a guy to me that's about to just dog an interview. Like he's about to like do terrible during the interview process. He just seems like a guy who's way too prepared for that kind of thing. So I'm with you. It feels like this is going to happen pretty soon here, but they might wait for the finals to end. And I'm fine with that. I think you do still have enough time to kind of gather the troops all around in the offices of El Segundo and figure out what you want to do in the draft and free agency. And hopefully you have an idea of that through the interviews and the process that has already gone on.
Well, it gives us all the more incentive to hope that the Mavericks sweep the Celtics, right? It gives us all the it gives like that's what I'm rooting for anyway. But it gives us all the more reason to hope for that because it means that JJ would be able to start working with the Lakers that much sooner.
Right.
Yeah, I think the issue, the only issue I could see here, because you're right, like it's not like Redick, will nail interviews 1 and 2, and then he'll get to like to the final interview with like Jeannie, and Jeannie will not be impressed with JJ, right? Like
Right.
he'll have the interview with the basketball ops people, and he'll have the interview with like the people between basketball ops and Jeannie, and then he'll have the interview with Jeannie, and I don't see that going poorly. Like I just don't like. Like he's just, if Ham could nail that, if Darvin Ham could nail that process, I feel like JJ could probably nail that process.
Oh, that's
Um,
not fair.
um,
That's mean.
because like at the end of the day, right? Like the thing with interviewing for the Lakers that has really kind of stuck out to me is that like, are you saying this is the case for all interviews, right? But I feel like the Lakers, it's a lot easier to figure out what they're hoping that you say,
Sure.
you know, and with that in mind, like it's kind of like
You wear a Mamba mentality shirt. Is that what you're saying? You walk in. Walk in with a mama
No,
mentality shirt on.
you show up. You show up at your interview the way that Darwin did for Kobe's statue thing.
You're hired. 4 years guaranteed.
That was like essentially a funeral, and Darwin showed up with a foam finger. I kind of feel like he showed up with his interview with the foam finger Mamba mentality t-shirt. Yeah. but yeah, I think I gotta find an image of that. Next time you're talking, I'm gonna find a picture of that.
Okay.
But no, I'm just I think that with JJ, the only thing that I would be, somewhat concerned, like it's not even a concern. It's just with JJ having so little experience as a head coach, with zero understanding of what it's like to deal with personnel movement and scouting, and because it's not as simple as JJ and Pelinka working together, right?
Sure.
It's every level of the organization. Your coach works with everybody. European scouts on, is there a draft and stash player for later in the round? You got to work with Jesse and Joey on the scouting department in general. Is there somebody at 17 where it's worth it to take that player at 17? Or if not, then that opens up a whole can of worms in and of itself, right? Where,
Sure.
all right, well, we're going to move 17 for who? And for what are we looking for here? I think JJ's kind of basketball philosophy, that is where the Old Man in the Three and the JJ Redick podcast and Mind the Game do come into play here, and that is where you can find some interesting kernels with what he's kind of looking for with this Lakers roster. Like, I get the sense with him that like he sees the game in a very modern way. And I think whatever the Lakers do in the offseason, I think is going to have to reflect that very modern philosophy, spacing, player. I think it's going to I think one thing that he really, really values is player movement, and not just a heliocentric offense. Like, there's a lot that and like he's going to be having those heliocentric conversations with the most heliocentric player in the history of the league, in LeBron James. So there's a lot that needs to be figured out here, and there's just zero experience to build off of. And that's where, like, let's say that what that person told me is actually true, that they have this handshake deal in place, and that they're already working together, and that they're just waiting for the right time to make the announcement. Honestly, that's best case scenario to me. I don't even care about the official announcement. We know where this is going. It doesn't change anything. Are you working together? Is there some communication here in what you're looking for whenever these, so that once the finals do end, you really do hit the ground running, right? And I do like it's very Lakersy, right? To say like, yeah, we want for our future head coach to be congratulated by Mike Breen and congratulated by Doris Burke and congratulated by whoever is working the sideline there. Unlike JJ, we hear that you have some news here. We hear you have some personal news. And then he gets to say how honored he is to work with the NBA's most marquee franchise and yada, 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 and all those things. Like, I could see the Lakers wanting that, right? We know that the Lakers care about the perception and the PR and all of this stuff. And so I could see that happening too. And then after the finals ending, you do the head coach introduction thing, and you go on from there. My only thing is, all I really, really care about here is that some communication has already begun here on at like some, like, beyond the typical interview, real philosophy shit, because the Lakers have really lacked that basically since the title.
Right. And hopefully the Lakers kind of learn their lesson a little bit on this. Anthony, you just made the Darvin Ham joke there in terms of if he can do it, anyone can kind of thing. But if you remember last time during the interview process, Darvin Ham was asked how would he use Russell Westbrook, right?
Mhm.
That was a huge factor
Well,
in
that's more
his
what I meant when I said that people know what the Lakers are looking to hear when they're taking the interview, not
right,
the
but
Kobe mentality thing, but yeah.
for sure. But I'm looking at that in terms of let's get in reality. It was very clear they wanted to trade Russell Westbrook. They wanted to trade him during the summer. They were trying to trade him all during the season. Going into your interview process, asking your coach what his philosophy would be on that is a little bit just. I think it goes against what you're actually trying to do as a team, the goals of the franchise. So hopefully they've learned from that lesson. But the Lakers are in a rare position where their core, at least just the stars, are intact, right? Like the core fundamental of the team is intact. And that's where you can have those conversations with JJ, right? Like, how would you use Anthony Davis on defense? How would you use LeBron, right? And all those questions can kind of come up because the Lakers aren't changing those two. And the filler stuff will come around it. But I think that's a lot easier than if a coach is going into the brand new situation. You don't know your star player. You have all these young guys going in. And that's mostly where young coaches step in. First time head coaches, right? They step into these young kind of situations where it's kind of an empty slate. JJ's at least going in with the two stars readily available. I was listening to another JJ pod. I think it was a pod called Flagrant. It was like 3 hours. So you had to sift through a lot of different stuff. But at the end of it, he was asked, who's the player he'd like to coach the most? This was about
Did you
2 3
say
months
Max
ago.
Christie?
It was honorable mention was Max, but no, his
Jalen
the player.
Hood-Schifino.
That's not fair. That's not fair. He has not met J. He has not. He hasn't met Jalen Hood-Schifino yet. Um, we'll see. We'll see what his relationship with his next season.
Darvin Ham,
The
I don't
answer,
think ever met Jalen Hood-Schifino.
you're saying I met Jalen more than Darvin Ham? No, but
Yeah, you definitely talked to him more than Darvin did.
but JJ's answer was Luka, which is an interesting answer, right? Like Luka Doncic was the person that he mentioned, and he talked about how they got to kind of play together a little bit, and he was able to kind of sift through, and he kind of broke down how Luka is this heliocentric player, but it's also within this ball movement scheme, right? And JJ's obviously a movement shooter, and so I'm sure like his stuff will be, taking away corner threes and kind of going towards more of the analytical, the modern game. And if you listen to him talk, he'll kind of emphasize those things. And he's a guy that obviously really lives in the film room as well. He's a guy that's big on film and numbers and analysis, and just very modern type of coach, which hopefully the Lakers are asking the right type of questions to him to kind of get this process moving forward. But it feels like JJ is going to be the guy. Like, I don't think it hurts to have it's not similar to the Ty Lue situation, but obviously LeBron has caped for Ty Lue very publicly, even while he's coaching another team. In some instances, but I think JJ's in that same line where LeBron at least has they can meet on a basketball level, and that's just unprecedented, Anthony. Where LeBron has been this good this long, where a player of that stature is able to still impact kind of these top moves. It's just rare, and so LeBron and JJ can kind of have a coach player relationship that I think I was thinking about this has just not existed ever. Like like has this type of where like a a personal almost best friend is now the head coach. It's a very rare situation that I'm thinking about in history. Maybe when Magic was like the player coach, which didn't end well.
Well,
But
how
like
rare! It's never happened where a team's best player is older than the head coach.
right, yes,
That's a
that
new
too.
one.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's
Exactly.
a whole different. Like it's always such a funny little thing where, I've had editors who are younger than me, and that leads to some interesting conversations there and stuff, and that dynamic is going to be interesting. I'm curious, Raj, what you think about the assistant coaches that were listed so far. The list that Stein threw out there were James Borrego, Jared Dudley, and Sam Cassell.
Yeah,
What do you think of that list that, to this point? Obviously, it literally has to grow. There needs to
right.
be at least 2 more coaches added to that group, plus the second row people and scouts and all of that stuff.
So I'd love to have Jared Dudley back, and that again, that he's on a Mavs team that could possibly win the championship. Still on the bench there, but I'd like to have him back. Really important piece not only as a player in that 2020 team, but just as a vocal kind of leader and a guy that I think that has been missed. James Borrego, I guess, is the only coach out of these three so far that has had head coaching experience, and it wasn't much. It
No,
was a short
and it
stint in
wasn't good
Charlotte
experience
that
either.
did not go well. I also think like him, he probably walked in there and tried to set a level of professionalism that they just weren't ready for. So like at least that's what I think happened. And Sam Cassell, just longtime assistant. I'm fine with those names.
You
I would
tell
like
me, Raj, that LaMelo Ball was not the just consummate professional? LaMelo Ball, who is currently being sued for running over a kid's foot?
so
That
so you
guy is
mentioned
not
so you
mature?
mentioned so you mentioned Lamelo, and so like obviously he's the one, I guess, that's the kind of leading springboard there. But today, Anthony, I watched PJ Washington shot fake, attack a closeout, attack Gobert's chest, and hit a contested layup in the fourth quarter. What are they hiding in Charlotte? Like, what are they hiding in Charlotte? Like that, he was not showing this type of stuff. And obviously, the 3-point shooting has kind of ballooned him. But tonight he was 2 for 7, or I believe 3 for 8 from three, whatever it was. His ability to attack like we need to go, save or rescue more players out of Charlotte. But no, like I'm fine. I'm fine with those names. I would like a little bit more head coaching experience on the bench. Obviously JJ's I think gonna have free will to kind of decide his head coaches, his assistant coaches to an extent. But I would like a couple. Like to me, James Borrego's head coaching stint doesn't even really count as a
Count.
head coaching.
Yeah.
Yeah, as a head coaching stint to me. Sam Cassell obviously has been his assistant so long, so he's so good at that role that I think that's a nice kind of addition to this team. He'll be like very professional and kind of know his way around an organization, which JJ is going to be the face of. So it'll be nice to have a guy who's kind of been in that second chair. But I would like a few more head coaching kind of guys on the bench. But I think it's a fine list to start.
Yeah, I'm fine-ish with it. I have the same concerns. I would like if we're already talking about assistant coach leaks or whatever, I would have liked to have seen a longer standing head coach be considered here, whether it's Terry Stotts, whether it's Alvin Gentry, whether it's like whoever, I've mentioned Stan Van Gundy in the past because I think he would also
Mm-hmm,
offer some front office experience that I think the Lakers kind of lack too. Even though it also isn't good front office experience, I think it's still more than is currently there. Um, so like those are the things that I agree with. The part of this that I find interesting is it's pretty clear, right? Like anytime your three finalists, two of those finalists who don't appear to be getting the job are now also being considered to be assistant coaches. That signifies to me that the
mm,
Lakers are kind of saying, "Hey, we played a role in Frank's assistant coaching group, and we won a championship that way. We went away with that. We went away from that with Darvin,
mm-hmm.
and obviously we saw how that worked out with Darvin. I haven't heard anything on the Handy front to see what's going on there. I mean, he could potentially just take his former role because what was he, third or fourth on the bench? Was he?
Y- Yeah, he definitely got promoted, I believe. He started as just the player development guy and then he moved up to an actual
Yeah.
chair. I'm not sure the actual chair he moved up to, but he definitely was on the front of the bench
Yeah,
his
he
last
could
season.
maybe take that same chair on the bench. And if the Lakers, I think, draft Bronny, I think that'd be something I would really look for because LeBron is going to want Handy there to work with Bronny. Because LeBron has seen what Handy has done with other young players throughout his career. So I think that's
No,
something that I could maybe see happening.
if you go to games and you get there early enough, LeBron, who's I think Anthony the most creature of habit player that's ever existed, maybe it's all with Phil Handy. Like maybe that's replaceable, maybe it's not. I don't know their relationship. Obviously, I'm not in their conversations, but that's who he works out with every
Hmm.
single time before a game. Like for an hour before a game, those two, Handy guarding LeBron, pushing him off the post, kind of making him kind of shoot all his different fadeaways. That's all done with no one else. It's just him and Phil Handy doing their pregame ball handling, shooting work. So I don't know how you just replace that. I'm of the belief that Handy will be back in some capacity. I just can't imagine LeBron's gonna be like, yeah, okay, go ahead and let my main trainer go somewhere else. He's been here since LeBron got here, so I would be
Yeah.
shocked if Handy's not on the bench. But yeah, if you go to games, you'll see that he's the main guy that LeBron works with. It's strange that there's been you haven't heard any kind of conversations of them kind of returning in some way or another.
I mean, it kind of makes sense that they would try to prioritize the other head coach candidates to try to like see if they could convince
Mm,
them to work with the guy that they lost the job to, right? Um, but look, like all of this stuff too is based off of whispers. Like we'll see what the actual staff looks like. I had just been hoping that, I know people were hoping that maybe Nori or Adelman would be one of the coaches that get considered here. I always found that pretty unlikely because they are in great situations where they are. And if they just wait one more year, they'll be head coaches. Whereas if they go to the Lakers, a much more volatile situation, less chance of a title, I think, with the Lakers than with the Wolves or with the Nuggets. That both of those coaches would rather just like wait there to see what that looks like and what their chances at a head coaching gig next year look like. Um, but I was definitely really hoping to hear more. And look, we have to see what happens with the Cleveland thing. We have to see if all of a
mm,
sudden the Kings have an opening or the Clippers have an opening because of the holdouts that they have with their head coaches. This is again for a situation that I feel like the Redick thing feels like how when you were a kid you would be doing your homework and like
mm-hmm.
the more confident you were about a decision, the harder you wrote it in pencil
Okay.
because like when you wrote it really really light, it was really easy for that to be erased off and you could never tell that anything was
Mm,
written there. But you wanted an answer, you wanted something there just to maybe come back to after you come back from the questions that you are a little less confident or more confident about. Um, that right now, I feel like JJ Redick's name is written confidently in pencil.
mm,
It's not quite pen. It's still technically erasable, but it's very confidently there, and that's where this is all heading. But look, you, I try to say, and it was funny. I've been talking a lot. Like the more reporting that I do, the more that I find myself talking to reporters because I'm a English major who worked in PR and worked with journalists while I was in PR, and then I came in. I started doing this stuff, and over time, the more time that you start, the more that you do this, you have these relationships, and now I'm leveraging those relationships, and in doing so, I've been talking more to other people who do this, who I have longer standing relationships with, and I'm like, so like. If this happens, what do you feel about this? And if this happens, what do you feel about that? And all of that. And one of the things that they'll say is that like the hardest thing in doing any kind of reporting is that minds change. That like until a
mm,
decision is written in ink, you never know with 100% certainty what you reported is actually going to be the case. All of the people who thought that Kyle Kuzma included that he was going to Sacramento in a Buddy Hield
mm-hmm.
trade. Like there were plenty of there was a ton of reporting on that, and then all of a sudden, oh no, wait, it's Russell Westbrook. You know,
Right. Yeah.
you just never know in this. So that's why I would say with JJ Redick, I think it's confidently written in pencil. If his name is erased, it's the kind of thing that you'll still see there on the paper, and we'll always remember the JJ Redick thing. But I think that's where this is heading. I don't think I honestly don't even have any real Timberwolves thoughts. I don't know. I'm glad that they extended it and we get an
Yeah.
extra basketball game and an extra episode of Inside the NBA. I guess I don't know. Do you have any
No,
thoughts?
I'm glad that they, won this game four. I think this should be a closer series than it's shown. Every game has been close down the stretch. I'm glad they don't get to say close sweep like I got to last year, at least. So, it'll be a little bit different this year. But I've enjoyed these games. Luka and Kyrie have been absolutely magical down the stretch. I'm not saying they're going to come back, Anthony, from 3-0 or anything like that. I think the first game's the hardest, though. That, like, getting over that first initial hump, that mental hurdle that you have to get through.
Especially the way that they've lost,
E
where they
exactly.
got walked down every time, and like this time they actually won a game in Dallas and held a late lead.
Right. Yeah. And so everyone's kind of picked on Gobert, which, makes sense. He's very pickable, pick onable, if that makes sense. Like he's a guy that is very easy to make fun of. But their defense to me, I think gives them a floor that's just it's enough where if they get just enough contributions out of other guys, like you get some Jaden McDaniels open threes, Karl Anthony Towns doesn't foul by breathing every single time. Like if Karl Anthony Towns can stay out of foul trouble one game this series, they can at least extend this to 6. I think Anthony Edwards has kind of found his groove off the pick and roll. Gafford instead of Lively is a huge difference for him coming off screens. Lively can switch a little bit more. We'll see if he can play if he gets out. And I'm not sure if he entered concussion protocol or not, but we'll see if he plays going into game 5. I think they've been so good all year, and their floor is too high to me just to go out with a whimper in this series. So I'm hoping they can kind of push this a little bit. I think this is going to game 6 at least, where Dallas then takes care of it. But also it just makes me sad we did not get like any real playoff games. This like we got we jumped right into the Denver series, and it felt like we were analyzing the same series from last year. Like it just like I know we got 5 playoff games. Like that's
Is
awesome.
this you
It's just
saying that the Lakers should have tanked and had a few
no,
more
it's not.
playoff games
Not
before they had to face the Nuggets? Is that what you're saying?
absolutely not. No, I stand by my decision of doing the right thing and going after the win. But no, it's kind of sad because I'm watching this and it's so fun to watch kind of the rock fights that have been going not in the East. I'm not the East is just not been a real sport. But like in the West, even with these games being even with Dallas being up 3-0, I just have loved the chess match back and forth. The play calling from Jason Kidd, and kind of running all these actions, and Kyrie and Luka hitting clutch shot after clutch shot after clutch shot, and Anthony Edwards kind of ascending to this superstar like status where he's learning how to be a playmaker on the fly, really, with no other help. So it's been fun. We need playoff basketball. We need more than 5 games, Anthony. I was thinking about 2 LA teams made the playoffs, Anthony. Crypto got 5 games out of it. 5 games. 2 LA teams made the playoffs. I had 5 chances to go to a playoff game. That's not enough. That's just not
I
right.
should have tanked, and you would have had more chances to go to a playoff game. I want to wrap on one more thing, and then we have super comments. I actually kind of feel like I have to hustle through the rest of this episode because I don't know if you guys have been hearing, but the weather here in Texas has not exactly been ideal. I saw a picture of an old ass oak tree pull up an entire curb because it got knocked down. I don't have a big oak tree out front. I do have a tiny little oak tree that's growing and it's trying to fight its way through all of this stuff. Somehow lived through 2 freezes and now this storm. The weather out here is just bananas. But I do feel like I have to hustle through what we have to get through here because I might lose power at any moment. But Bronny is an interesting one. According to Shams, yeah, that was right outside the house. Did you see that on my face? I could probably turn
I've
off
heard
my
it.
lights and light myself up with the lightning. Bronny James,
That was Clutch sending over the information.
Yeah, he's like, you better talk right. Bronny James, according to Shams, was originally going to do workouts with 10 teams and has whittled that down to 2 teams. Those 2 teams reportedly are the Phoenix Suns and the Lakers.
Yeah.
He's already held a pro day, at least 2, or he did the combine and then he did a pro day, a clutch pro day. So you did have a workout that all the teams were able to attend. It's just that he's not going to work out individually for anybody else other than the Suns and the Lakers. And and then you have Shams apparently continued in saying that the Suns are seriously considering taking Bronny at 22, which would be a choice to draft a single player in the first round when you have really important needs elsewhere on your roster. That led a lot of Lakers fans to kind of freak out and say, well, does that mean that the Lakers, did they have to take him at 17? And that's
Right.
the intended outcome here, I think, with the reporting that's being done, is that Clutch wants Bronny to go in the first round. You get more guaranteed money in the first round, and you are considered a bigger part of an organization as soon as you show up by way of being drafted in the first round compared to being taken in the second, let alone later in the second or going undrafted, though I don't see a circumstance where he goes undrafted here. What did you take from all of the noise here with Bronny today? Do you think the Lakers
Yeah.
should use 17 on him?
Oh no, no, I do not think they should use the number 17 on Brady. I was kind of,
Oh, there's more lightning. Oh, shit.
no, I was a little sad because I think Rich Paul came out and said he would not accept a two-way at all, which is a little disappointing because I was looking forward to watching Bronny kind of and he may still play in South Bay,
Yeah,
but I think
he'll
that's
still play down there, but he
yeah.
won't take a
He,
two-way
he,
contract.
he won't take a two-way. Yeah, and again, like this is Rich Paul doing his job, right? Like Rich Paul's
Yeah.
supposed to kind of bump up his prospect, and if he can get someone to bite on a first-round pick, like all luck to him. But no, it's interesting when they said he's denying all workouts, right? And obviously Bronny's in a unique situation where doesn't need the money, right? Like doesn't need he's not in a desperate situation. So the LeBron, and this is kind of what they've been able to earn for Bronny, is he gets to kind of pick his situation. I've been pretty adamant, Anthony, that there's a deal for Bronny with the Lakers ready on the table. Now, is that a first round pick? Absolutely not. I don't think that's where it is, but I do think there's a two-way for sure, and then there's the 55th pick in the draft, which I'm sure is ready and tailor made for Bronny to accept. But I think
Or
it's
any pick
interesting
that
that
the Lakers buy. They
right.
always buy a pick.
So I'm not like obviously I'm not trying to critique LeBron and their process in this. It's just I think when the kind of reporting is they want him to just be a normal basketball prospect and just go through the process as any other kid would and keep it basketball, but then you deny all the workouts. Tells me like then it's not just basketball, right? Then it's I'm kind of choosing my situation. The Suns wanting him for LeBron kind of story that came out, that just doesn't make sense. LeBron uh, can't sign with the Suns for the amount of money that it would make any sense at all. But I think just the
Yeah, he's not
proximity to
taking a pay
home,
cut to go play in Phoenix.
right? It's the proximity to home, to LA, obviously, which would be the kind of why he would go and play in Phoenix, and maybe that's a place he can get minutes. Phoenix is on a place where they're gonna have to continue to sign minimum contracts, and Bronny's kind of a risk in like he's kind of a high risk, high reward type of player in that sense. But yeah, I think it's strange that he's not doing workouts for any other team other than those two. I find that strange. If you wanted to just keep it basketball, but again, those guys they're allowed to do that because Bronny's in a unique situation where he just does not need the actual contract. He can kind of pick his team in a way that no other player of his level of prospect has been able to do.
Yeah, it's so silly because on one hand, LeBron will say like, "Let this kid be a kid. Let this
Right.
guy, just work out and all these things." But then, you'll also have Rich Paul go out there and say, "Well, actually, it's perfectly okay that Bronny gets greater opportunity because of who his dad is." And it's like, which way do you want it? Actually, and also, if you want it, if you want him to benefit from LeBron's stature in the league, and you want to be so like brass about it, which that's what Rich Paul was doing when he was saying that, like, LeBron worked his ass off to get to this place, and it's perfectly fine that Bronny would get a bit of a bump in interest and in opportunity by way of the work that his dad did. Okay, Also, you probably aren't allowed to comment on nepo babies from here on out, but fine. Like that's your call. Um, and I think here with the Lakers, like, look, every single person I have spoken to, this doesn't mean that I like the one thing I will never ever do, the one thing you will never ever ever catch me saying on this show, tweeting, anything like that. I will never be 100% sure of what LeBron is going to do until he actually does it, because the guy likes flexibility, and he wields such power in the league that he can do anything at any given moment. And I don't think he'll go to the Phoenix Suns, because he's not going to sign a minimum deal to go play with the Phoenix Suns when he would be playing on a roster with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal and Devin Booker making the amount of money that they make. You know, those
Right.
things kind of matter. Also, LeBron has interest in owning a team. He can't just give up $50 million if he wants to be a billionaire and own an NBA team one day. You can't. That's not how business people typically operate. I guess he could opt in, and the Lakers could trade him to Phoenix. But like, the Lakers are also going to make the deal that makes the most sense for them. And like, is Phoenix willing to give up Kevin Durant? If so, then okay, I could see it maybe taking place. But like, man, what a day that would be. That would be a
Oh my
hilarious
God.
day. That would be a hilarious day. But like, Matt Ishbia came out and said that Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal are not getting traded. So if that's off the table, and LeBron James taking a pay cut is also off of the table, then there's no real route for him to get there. So all of this noise is just that. It's just noise. That's it.
Right. Right.
And like, the other thing too here on Bronny, I think eventually he'll be fine. Like, I saw Bill Ryder compared him to Gary Payton II, and like that kind of playing style, hyper athlete, with like a smaller frame, an okay jumper. Bronny doesn't have like great on ball skills. GP2 doesn't really have great on ball skills on the, when he has the ball in his hands. So like, there's a route for him to take, and he's saying the right things about like what he needs to do to stick around and play a legitimate role in the league. And that really kind of stuck out to me. It's like, oh, he has a good head on his shoulders, so that's good. But like, the idea that the Lakers, with only 3 first rounders at their disposal this year, with a desperate need to legitimately upgrade so that they can give LeBron James a viable chance at a championship next year. Like, all right, Rob walks into a room and asks LeBron, all right, you get to pick. We can either draft Bronny or you can compete for a championship, because it's really that simple. If the Lakers use a first rounder on another project point guard who isn't going to help you next year, you're not going to look. We can see you linked the two there. I didn't say his name. You linked the two there with the person that you had on your mind with project point guard who didn't do shit for the Lakers last year.
Okay.
But like, that's essentially it. It's really that simple, right? Rob walks into a room, says, we think, based off of the intel that we have, Phoenix really is considering taking him at 22, or Utah is really considering taking him at 32 or whatever it is. Do you want to draft Bronny? And knowing that if we do that, that significantly lowers our chances at competing this year. Is that something you're willing to sacrifice here? Because if you say yes, I am going to leak my ass off and make it known that was a you choice. You made that call.
Yeah, I mean, I think the issue with that conversation, when you get to that point, obviously, like, I've never been a dad, so I cannot speak to in terms of how LeBron would exactly feel. But I think there's a world where LeBron goes, "Who are you drafting at 17? Who's that?"
Yeah.
Oh, no. Bronny's better than him. I can.
Oh, for
Look,
sure. Every
as much
especially AAU dad would say that.
okay, but like, as much as I like Jalen Hood-Schifino, like, I'm sure LeBron can go, you drafted him at 17 a year ago. Like, Bronny's shown, obviously Bronny didn't have the numbers that JHS had, and like, JHS could contribute this year. You never know. Like you said, he didn't help last year. There's a world where he could. We'll see. But like,
Like
there's a world where you
Brooklyn?
get
Like for Atlanta? Like where's Jay?
he averaged
South
like
Bay?
25. He averaged like 25 and 8, in his in the games he got in South Bay. But if more people were watching. But no, I think that's our world, right? And I think that that's a world where it can come to. But I don't think it'll ever get to that. This like first round pick stuff feels more floated by Rich Paul and others. And again, I think it's Rich Paul's job to do that. The other thing I wanted to say, Anthony, is it's not like I think when we're speaking about this, both of us has been in this long enough to know, like when you talk to enough scouts and all this stuff, somebody's a family member of somebody, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
how kind of the business kind of works. So I don't think LeBron is doing anything that's out of question at all. It's just, it's interesting to see Bronny kind of deny workouts, which is just like a natural process of a player in his talent pool, right? He's not a consensus top 5 pick. He's not even a consensus first round pick. Those dudes do a ton of workouts. Like they work out with everybody because they have to. And but obviously he's kind of allowed these different rules because of who his dad is, which is fine. But again, that kind of lends to a different conversation. But we'll see. I think Bronny's a nice prospect. I thought he would go back to college. I think like that's what a lot of people thought, especially with the health issues in his first year. Wasn't able to really have a complete season in the way he wanted to. But he wants to go to the league, and I think he's gonna end up on a roster somewhere. I just do not see a team giving up or using a first round pick on Bronny.
Yeah, especially the teams that they're talking about with Phoenix. Phoenix needs to upgrade Nurkic, right? And they need
Mm-hmm.
to, that roster is not complete. The Lakers obviously need to use their first rounder this year on roster upgrades. So like the idea that two of the most honestly, Raj, they are the two most win now teams in the league, I think, right? With Phoenix and their cap situation, and the Lakers having a LeBron James entering his age 40 season, those are the two most win now teams. I don't see them taking a player who is a year away from being a year away. Like I just don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
All
Right.
right, I'm gonna go ahead and dive into these super comments, which means I'll play this one time. Rye Guy writes, Rob not getting Kyrie with 2 chances is fireable alone. Maybe worse than actually trading for Russ, up there with Beasley, Pippen, with the Beasley / Pippen head scratcher.
Scottie Pippen Jr.
I don't know why that would be head scratching. He was a 2-way player, but like, oh no. All right. Overlooking the history between Malik Beasley and Scottie Pippen Jr. and who Scottie
Oh,
Pippen Jr.'s mom was and all of that.
all right.
I guess that I don't think that's fireable, but the Kyrie thing, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but one of the things that look, I have Kobe right behind me, right? For
Mm-hmm.
athletes, if you perform really, really well, we overlook stuff, and with Kyrie, one of the things that I have found really kind of gross over the last like week or so is this idea that like it's one thing to say that like he has spoken to the way that he has learned from those
Sure.
experiences. If like at least listen to him when he says I
Mm-hmm.
needed to learn, I needed to mature from that stuff, and you see a lot fewer stuff on his timeline. Nike did not want to lose Kyrie Irving. He was a huge earner for them, and they let
Mm-hmm.
him walk because he was a cancerous presence in the league at the time. And I'm fine with doing the thing now where it's like he learned, he matured, and it's cool to see him come out on the other side of that situation a more fully formed human being. I'm fine with that. I'll raise my hand and say, I didn't think he was necessarily capable of it. He proved me wrong, and it's cool to see. However, what I'm not okay with is rewriting history and saying that, like, there was no risk whatsoever involved in trading for
Right.
Kyrie either time that he was available. And the Lakers themselves had looked into Kyrie even before the 2 times that they considered trading for him. And they were concerned about his off-court stuff years ago. They considered trading for Kyrie when they had just gotten LeBron, and they were concerned about his off-court stuff at that time. And then it got worse, and it got worse, and then he went out and wound up in Dallas after almost losing his spot in the league and having that indefinite suspension, losing his Nike money, and now he's like learned from all of that stuff. But this idea that and also the Nets didn't want to trade him to LA, and the deal that the Lakers could have offered wasn't the type of offer that the Nets were interested in.
Right, and I think the Lakers also didn't want to pay him the full 4 years, and honestly, no one did. Dallas didn't even give him Anthony the full 4 years this summer. This last summer, he got a 3-year, kind of max deal. And look, Dallas rolled the dice on a super risky player, and they won. I remember, at the time, all the analysis were like, I wouldn't trade for him at all. Zach Lowe said that. Other, analysis kind of said the same thing. Yeah, a lot of people, did not want to, and you look at the package they got. They got 1 first-round pick. I think it was very low first, and they got Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie. That was the package for Kyrie Irving. This player obviously is not going for that, and obviously Kyrie had all the off the court stuff. I was for the talent. I remember at the time I was doing the the pod with Sabrina. I love basketball, and I was tweeting out, "Bring me Kyrie Irving" during the conversation during the Chris Haynes. I remember reported that Brooklyn and the Lakers had a phone conversation, which. Don't know what that meant, but I thought that meant we were getting
the Lakers in Brooklyn. To the best of my knowledge, the Lakers in Brooklyn and the Lakers and Nets got pretty far in their negotiations with Kyrie. The Nets also wanted the Lakers to take on Joe Harris in his contract, and the Lakers were reluctant to do that. And I think that was kind of like the nail in the coffin was okay, we're going to send you all of this stuff, and you want us to take on your bad contract without paying you for the bad contract and take on all of this risk in trading for Kyrie Irving and taking on the bad. Joe Harris isn't in the league anymore. He's not an NBA player anymore. So, there again, I my concern with the Kyrie Irving thing was that if it isn't, he'll make good. And we'll see how he handles all of this, and we'll see what he says at whatever podium. He has been a very mature guy, and I got to give him credit for that. But he's always he's one YouTube search away from a whole nother rash of stupid stuff. And maybe he's past it, maybe he's completely matured and he's a completely different human being and individual. I would be really happy for him if he did actually experience that kind of growth. But I thought that the Lakers were not in a place where they could take on that risk. And all of those lights, it's one thing to go to Dallas where a lot of people frankly agree with Kyrie Irving on a lot of that stuff. but you go to LA and you have those bright lights and you're getting asked about it constantly and you're facing all of that criticism and all of those it's just it would have been a circus, and I don't know how he would have handled that. I don't know how the Lakers would have handled that. I don't think they as an organization are equipped to deal with all of that stuff. And they made a choice, and like you said, Dallas made the opposite choice, and they could win a championship this year.
Yeah, my last thing on that is it was an absolute risk. Dallas bet Luka's prime on Kyrie Irving. That's a real thing that they did, and it was questioned at the time. The first year that they traded for him, they didn't make the playoffs. They tanked at the end and were killed for it. They ended up with Derek Lively, so it worked out, right? They hit on the draft, so their tanking, I guess, worked out for them. But no, it was a huge risk, and they get to reap the rewards of that. So yeah, Kyrie Irving thing got out. I don't blame the Lakers for not doing though. I remember the trade was 2 first swaps, Max Christie and Austin Reeves, and you can laugh at the players within that. That's all the Lakers had at that time. That was literally the only thing they had to offer. And obviously Brooklyn wanted all of it at the time of the trade negotiation. So yeah, it's worked out for the Mavs for sure.
Marley Villasenor writes, if Boston wins banner 18 from the JV Eastern Conference bracket, I will vomit. B-ball gods can't reward them for that. To a certain extent, it's hard for the B-ball gods to really hold it against them. It's not like they can't choose to play against Western Conference teams. Like that's not something within their control. What I will say though is that like I do think that the East inflated their stats all year. When they like I kept on saying that like, man, look at their record against the West. Yeah, they were so much fresher on a nightly basis because they got to like take off almost every other fourth quarter against every Eastern team that they played. Milwaukee was a mess this year. Philly missed Embiid for most of the year. You go through the list of East teams that they would play on any given night, and it was just a cakewalk, you know. I'm a big advocate for you know, steel sharpening steel, and
Mhm.
in this case, in you know, whoever comes out of this Western Conference final, they will have played three really effing good teams to get to be able to play Boston. And Boston is going to have to ratchet up the intensity from fucking around for 46 and a half minutes and waiting for the Pacers to do all kinds of dumb stuff and winning, you know, in spite of themselves.
Yeah.
And it's just like you know, they like Boston didn't even play New York. Boston played Philly when they didn't have Embiid, and Embiid was very clearly crippled. Like it's just, I don't know. I still would bet on whoever comes out of the West. And the good news there is you're probably getting plus money on whoever you bet on coming out of the West.
Yeah, sure. And like, so I think people have used this to attack just the NBA in a whole and the Eastern Conference. And look, yeah, is it the weaker conference? Sure. It's just my issue, Anthony, is like they didn't play anyone healthy at all, right? Like they played the Heat without Jimmy Butler for the whole series. Then they played 2 games against the Cavs, right? With Donovan Mitchell, and the Cavs actually won a game with Donovan Mitchell. Like the series was 1-1 going to Cleveland, and obviously they play a Pacers team that had no business being there. They played the Knicks were without OG Anunoby. Brunson was on one leg.
No
You talk about
Randall.
how that's no Randall, and some of that is Tibbs for sure. But like they were not healthy going into that series. Also, they played an Indiana team. Like the East is not to me this like crap of a conference as it's being made out to be. It's just none of the stars were healthy during that, and that's
I
why
think it's
Boston
crap.
got.
It's
Yeah,
crap.
but I mean, like, but the Knicks with Brunson and OG healthy, like, it's a solid basketball team that at least can push them.
Evan
Milwaukee with
average
both,
height is like they're like 1 through 3. Their average height is like 5'10". They're
yeah,
tiny.
but it's playoff style. Like those dudes rebound really hard. They play, a very aggressive physical style to me that pretends better for the playoffs. Josh Hart was shooting like Klay Thompson from three, right? Like they were getting performances that would, to me, at least have pushed Boston a little bit if they were healthy. Milwaukee, right, with Giannis and Dame, as much as they've struggled and Doc Rivers is there for some reason, like that's at least a star duo that you have to deal with. Jared Allen sat the second round, which his teammates had some questions about, but like Jared Allen and Donovan Mitchell both like missed that whole series basically. Like to me, those are solid teams that when you take out the star, they're not good enough to compete with Boston. And that's the sad part to me. Philly as well, right? With Tyrese Maxey took the jump, but Embiid was, I forgot what his injury was this year, but he was obviously wasn't healthy again in the playoffs. It's just the stars were all out, Anthony. So we get this fake run and everyone calling the East trash. It's just none of the stars were healthy during it. So I would have liked to see one healthy series, but hopefully they lose in the finals.
Yeah, I think the East sucked. Like I just don't, because you had Milwaukee was technically the second best team there, and they had the
Mm-hmm.
whole head coach situation, and they were aging. Right, Chris Middleton was basically never healthy this year. You had, the Sixers were, I guess you could say, was in that same conversation, right, with Boston and with Milwaukee heading into the season. Then Embiid goes down, and it's cool to see Maxey step up the way that he did, but they were clear, like very clearly, like not, they're missing an MVP candidate all year. Then you had like
Right.
Miami, who made a fake run last year, and they returned to earth this year. And then you had like Orlando gave Cleveland issues, and then it's a very mediocre. It's an entire conference that has been shooting for the middle for my entire lifetime. You have
Sure.
so many owners in that conference who are perfectly fine with mediocrity because mediocrity pays the bills. There's less risk in shooting for mediocrity, and you have a chance at playoff revenue for being mediocre in that conference. Whereas in the West, you have years and years and years of teams having to win 50 games to get into the playoffs. And like the Lakers won 47 games this year. They would have been what, like a 4 seed in the East? They were
Yeah.
an 8 seed in the West, you know? Like it's just it's just it's a bad conference. It's a conference that's been rewarded for way too long for being mediocre at best. And this is like the result. This is what that looks like when all that mediocrity comes home to roost.
Yeah. Just hopefully they lose in the finals.
Yeah.
You can play that, that sound every single time.
Yeah.
Once they lose.
All right, we have another one here from Justin Tyndall. I have zero faith in Bus and Pelinka for it to come out that they think Redick has the chance to be a Pat Riley. Made me so angry. Riley won 4 rings with us while Redick hasn't coached an NBA game. Honestly, like I'm there with you, Justin. I think it's really insulting to Pat Riley that these two people who have no experience basically with Pat Riley at the level that they're currently working. Because yeah, Jeannie was there while Pat Riley was there, but Jeannie was like at a much lower place in the organization than she obviously currently is. And yeah, like Pat Riley, the only thing that Pat Riley and JJ Redick have in common right now, that's not to say that Redick doesn't have potential in coaching or whatever, but the only thing that they have going for them right now is they look good in a suit, solid haircut, and they're white. That's it. Like that's all they have in common
Played in
right
the league.
now.
And played in the
Okay.
league.
All right. They played in the league and they're charismatic. So they have 5
Yeah.
things in common with each other right now. And
Right.
you could say that about any number of other players who also played in the league and look good in a suit.
Also, both of them seem like very fiery people, like very fiery competitors, and I guess that's it. Yeah, very very fiery competitors, and the hair that you mentioned played in the league. Obviously, that's I think that's being That's obviously exaggerating the best case scenario for JJ Redick. I would just take a good coach that can kind of command the floor and what his team runs. I would take that. Like Pat Riley would be awesome. It's just I'm not expecting that, Anthony, in year 1 from JJ.
Yeah.
Redick. Year 1, Pat Riley wasn't Pat Riley in year 1.
Yeah, as shown by Winning Time. It took a little while for him to figure out, to find his voice. And
Yep.
That's a very fair concern that JJ Redick's detractors have on Redick. Is hell, I've talked to people who are close to Redick who are concerned about him taking a job as high leverage as the Lakers one would be right when he walks through the door. Like that's a concern for everybody except apparently the Lakers. Like they're the only ones who are like, no, he's Pat. He's Can we introduce him in a Ferrari too?
But my pushback to that is you want someone who wants this job though, right? Like you don't want someone who's coming in here timid. Like I think you gotta want this job, and you have to be enough of a psychopath, which I think JJ falls in this cloth of people. I
be eligible for the job and not want the job.
Well, I guess would be fearful.
Everybody's
of the job.
interviewing for the job.
Right, but I mean, no, for sure. But I think you mentioned how Mike Nori and David Adelman may wait for a better opportunity, right? They don't want all the lights right away in their first head coaching job. I think.
Oh no, I meant that they wouldn't want to leave their assistant job gigs for being an assistant in a more volatile situation, working for JJ Redick.
Okay.
They both were very interested in the position. The Lakers just never really took them all that seriously.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, I still think you want someone who's a psychopath and would accept the type of criticism that I think. And I think, look at Darvin Ham. He thought he was ready for that, and he obviously wasn't. Darvin Ham just was not a fan of the LA media to the point that he asked, like, why are you guys still asking me questions at a certain point? Like and like I think at least JJ comes in with a level of just knowledge, and he'll be a little bit more kind of media savvy in that sense.
That's for sure. He will be a lot better at that, I think, than maybe because like to your point about the fiery competitor thing, Redick can, like the reason I actually think Redick can actually be pretty good at this, especially compared to the last two coaches, Redick can be a real asshole.
Oh yeah,
he's a Duke guy. Like there is a specific kind of asshole that is like he wasn't just a Duke guy, Raj. He was the Duke
the Duke
guy.
guy.
He
Yes.
was the guy everybody hated at Duke. And he like reveled in it. He loved that shit. And he gets to ESPN and he's calling Mad Dog Russo, an actual legend in this space, racist on ESPN on like his like second or third appearance on the show. Like he's saying Mad Dog Russo was making Fox News points. Like that's insane that he would walk into that, and like you're talking about, like we talked about the kind of player that he was, the kind of confidence that it takes to shoot the ball as much as JJ Redick shot the ball, and the kind of shots that he was taking is also insane. So like I could see a world in which this works eventually. The issue here's my all right. Here's my problem with JJ Redick and the Lakers. It's not a Redick problem. It's a Lakers problem. Just like I don't think the Lakers will ever draft and develop their next Kobe Bryant. They aren't capable of that. They aren't patient enough. They'll like all year this year. All year we were hearing about how Jeannie Buss and Rob Pelinka still really, really, really believe in that old Darvin. They really believe this guy's going to figure it out. Did he? And what changed? You eventually fired the guy. What changed? Or is it just that it got loud enough? Did you actually believe in him? Or were you reluctant to fire a guy because A, it would cost you money, or B, Pelinka would have to admit he was wrong again? So like, I actually have a lot more confidence in JJ Redick either being a good head coach here with the Lakers, or especially being a good head coach down the road, than I have in the Lakers actually figuring this out. The Lakers, like right now, what are they? What's their core principle, Raj? What's the number one priority to the Lakers? And you can't say it's winning.
It's can you have a relationship with LeBron James and Anthony Davis? That's what it is. And I think the issue,
to your point, can you have a relationship with Rob Pelinka? Every decision that the Lakers make, that like every single thing that they do right now traces back to, does it help Rob keep his job? That's it.
So I feel like Rob's job is already secure. Like I don't see anything where he's in any kind of his job security is in question at all. But yeah, like to your point with the coaches, it feels like we're going to continue to flip coaches. And the problem with this is that JJ may not be ready this year, but Anthony, who else are you going to go get? Like if you say JJ is not the guy, or you have issues with JJ Redick, I get it. Like he's a first time head coach.
They compared him to Pat Riley.
Yeah. Sure, but I'm saying like just look at the coaches that are available. Is there anyone that you would like other than Ty Lue? It's him, and so you have to kind of live with the first time kind of head coach thing because there's no other person that's available. You had Frank Vogel that won the title, was fired 2 years later. Darvin Ham made the Western Conference Finals. I'm sure Anthony, that summer when Darvin Ham made the conference finals, I'm sure he felt so secure, at least for another 2 years. He must have. My first year, they traded everybody halfway through. I was 10 games under 500. LeBron missed the final month of the season. I still made the conference finals, and I'm gone a year later. There's no job security in this job. Zero. There's no job security. And I think the Lakers and Pelinka and Buss have all kind of made that very clear. This is a year-by-year basis that you are going to be judged by. You want to come do this job? Come do this job.
And I don't think that is the way to do this. No head coach has operated successfully in that kind of like it's one of those things. It's like championship or bust. It sounds great. It sounds great in your head. It sounds great to the fans. All we care about is championships. Okay. But that means that you're going to ignore the margins and you're going to ignore the little moves that help you get to a championship. Right? That was the actual reasoning that was used in not making a move this year. Was that they didn't want to make a marginal move this year because they didn't feel like the Lakers, no matter what they did, were going to be capable of winning a championship. Meanwhile, all we have found out since then is that there isn't a single juggernaut team that the Lakers, especially with a couple upgrades here and there, couldn't have at least pushed a little bit, right? Imagine the Lakers going up against, like, if they don't hard cap themselves with Gabe Vincent and Taurean Prince, and they are able to use, they have $20 million in expiring contract to go out and get a $20 million rotation type player, and what the rotation looks like going into those series and going into the playoffs. We've seen the impact that PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford have made. Like the idea that like, and again, like the reason I make all that point, I don't need to remake all of those points, but like the Lakers are basically like, they're that family that has live, love, life plastered all over their walls. And you know, it's like it's this family. Like I've known so many of these families where they have all of these like inspirational quotes and all of these things, and then you wouldn't you know it, the dad's cheating on the mom, and there's all this rot inside that family. I grew up in an affluent area. That shit happened all the time. And it was all these families that were all full of shit, and you knew that they were full of shit. And then it's finally made aware. Then people start becoming made aware of how full of shit the family is. And that's how I feel like this Lakers team is right now. They're infected with live, love, life, you know, or live, love, laugh. That's what it is. Live, love, laugh. It's probably plastered all over and you probably have all kinds of quotes all throughout the organization on mama mentality and championship or bust and all these things, when all they are just mantras. They're empty words because they aren't being lived up to. If it was championship or bust, Rob Pelinka hasn't competed for a championship in 4 years. If it was actually championship or bust, like, you know, you wouldn't, if it was championship or bust, you would have paid luxury taxes to keep Alex Caruso. Like, this is not a serious organization. And like, and you go out and you hire this rookie head coach who, again, might figure this out eventually. But like Tim points out on Twitter, no rookie head coach with zero experience has ever been successful in that first gig. And like you just said a second ago, it's a year by year thing. So they might fire somebody who might actually, Darvin could be a decent head coach eventually. I don't know.
That's what I was going to ask you, Anthony. So I think most people still wanted Darvin fired. And look, I think that was probably the correct move in terms of what your expectations are next year, right? Would Darvin be ready next year? I don't know. Who just won Coach of the Year? Mark Daigneault, right? Anthony, I pulled up his first 3 years, and you can go through, they were tanking, whatever it is. First year is 22-50. Second year is 24-58. The next year is 40-42. He would not survive here. He'd be gone. Mark Daigneault would not be coaching the Lakers. You do those 3 records, and you look at the coaches still coaching, right? Joe Mazzulla obviously got his job in a very strange way because Ime Udoka had some some relationships, in the franchise, but he's a guy that's now been there a few years. Jason Kidd, they rode through, right? How many people are saying you should fire Jason Kidd, fire him tomorrow? Jason Kidd's kind of turned out to be a good coach. I think that's because he was able to take his bumps through those times, right? He was able to kind of learn through those processes. Do the Lakers allow that? I'm not sure. And so like maybe JJ's a good coach, maybe he's not. But I'm just curious if he'll be able to kind of go through those growing pains that a coach 100% will have. The only coach, so Tim just mentioned that a first coach doesn't have success. The only name that comes up to me is Steve Kerr. But he inherited prime Steph. So I'm not, so like it's a little different. But I think that's the only other guy. And JJ and Kerr have some similarities too, but in terms of being a shooter and fiery kind of competitors. But that's the other guy. So you hope that works. I don't think the Lakers are ever going to be a spot that are just going to take their lumps with a coach, unless they're, tanking or something like that.
All right. Last super comment here comes from Justin Tyndall. If Mitchell re-ups with the Cavs, do you think we stay put with no major moves? Because for the love of God, do not trade for Trae Young. I don't think Trae Young is really on the board anymore. The clutch thing kind of sticks out to me, and throughout the year, I've said this before. Throughout the year, the player that the Lakers had more confidence in their ability to potentially get was Donovan Mitchell over Trae Young.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure. Also, like the negotiations, like these things reset every time that you open up new negotiations to a certain extent. But the negotiations between the Lakers and the Hawks were pretty fiery, pretty frustrating on both sides of that, where they both hit like that point of no return where they were like, we will not do this if you won't do this. And they sat there and festered for 3 months or so. And like part of the reason that the Lakers eventually were able to get Anthony Davis was because Dell Demps was fired and because Magic Johnson stepped away to tweet. It was David Griffin and Rob Pelinka who reapproached the negotiating table and were more serious with each other about their negotiations for Anthony Davis. In this case,
Mhm.
it would still be Rob Pelinka and it would still be that same Atlanta front office who would be negotiating a Trae Young deal. And I don't know how comfortable those sides of the negotiation would be.
Well, I think what's changed within that, and I always say like missing the playoffs gives you a license to be crazy. Getting the number one pick gives you a license to be a little crazy, right? I feel like that's been lost. That Atlanta got the first pick. Trae Young has not said anything about it online. Has not congratulated the franchise. Has not done anything of that nature that most franchise guys do when they get a number one pick. But yeah, I think that's what's changed. So I think that's where kind of the conversations can change, where you don't have to get as much back because you have a first round pick. Excuse me, a number one pick in your pocket. But I'm with Justin. I'm not for a Trae Young trade. The guy I would like, Anthony, is Miles Turner. I'm not sure if he's available, but that's a guy that I would really love to kind of go and steal from Indiana if since they got swept and kind of talked themselves into saving. They just drafted two centers. Isaiah Jackson's been playing for them, but Turner's probably been too good for them to move off of. But yeah, I think those negotiations come back. It might be for the other guard that's on their team.
I think it's more likely Indiana runs it back next year, right? Because they made it to the conference finals and then didn't have Tyrese for the second half of that series and then didn't have Matherin for any of the series.
Mm-hmm.
And, you traded for Siakam
Gonna be
mid-season, so you
expensive.
thinking, huh?
He's gonna be expensive. Like I mean, that like
Yeah,
and Indiana's not a team that likes to pay the tax. They're
yeah.
notoriously cheap.
They have an
Um,
older owner though, and I think he might kind of go for it. He's what he's the guy who owns all the malls. I'm blanking on his name.
uh,
Shoot. But anyway, the yeah, I think that like the Turner thing, I think that ship has kind of sailed.
mm,
Again, for a lot of the same reasons that we talked about with Trey, where uh the Lakers negotiated forever with Indiana for like there were a bunch of days there where we were all just kind of waiting, like, is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? Is it gonna happen? And then it just never happened. So maybe I mean it would be kind of surprising. It would be perfect. But we'll see. But yeah, I'm not interested in a Trae Young trade, and I don't really see one necessarily working out because the Lakers barely had enough to get a DeJounte Murray trade off of the ground. I don't think they have enough to get one off of the ground with Trey. He just means too much to that organization in the city. I know what you're saying about the reset and all of that stuff, but under no circumstance would a team be like, "Oh, we just got the first overall pick." Well, now we're less interested in taking less back for our superstar. Like that's I
sure,
don't see that working out. But I
sure. I
also
just feel
don't
like
know what his
Trey's
market is. So
right. That's always my point. His contract's kind of at the point where I think he's in a very kind of small market of teams who like need a guy like him, and he's very polarizing around the league. So I don't exactly know what he would pull back. I just think there's conversations that will be had again. I don't think the Lakers are going to get Trae Young, but I do think that might be like their third option, Anthony, if everything else fails. LeBron is very high on Trae Young, tweets about him all the time. Um, Left his agency, which is strange, but
kind of
uh,
think he'll tweet about him less now. All right. That is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lounge. Always long when Raj and I get together. So I'm going to be breaking this up to a few parts for the pod feed. I figured it out pretty well now to get the podcast lined up. Basically, the first episode that goes up every day is the long form conversation, and then the rest of them go up so that they sit at the top of your feed in order, so you can just go through them. But if you want to skip through all of that and listen to the full episode, it's listed as full episode. There's usually full episode in the description. Part 1, part 2, part whatever is also in the description there, so you can identify that as well. And we'll be able to continue to figure this out. But Raj, thank you very much for hopping on. Always a blast. To the 1,400 of you who tuned in late on a Tuesday night after a playoff game that the Lakers didn't even play in, thank you a ton for tuning in. Please do hit that subscribe button if you're watching right now on YouTube. If you guys are watching on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@LakersLounge. And then if you guys are listening to this in the morning via podcast, subscribe on YouTube. It's fun. We laugh. I think this is a better forum for the show. The a video forum where you see us laugh and you see us kind of interact that way. You get to see the death on Raj's face anytime Jalen Hood-Schifino comes up. So you have that. But if you only prefer podcasts, please subscribe wherever it is that you get your podcast, preferably on Odyssey. Leave those reviews, leave those subscriptions. And until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin saying have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tomorrow.